So 20-0, huh? Why not shoot for the stars, as Patrick Mahomes did in an interview at his golf tournament in Hawaii last weekend to benefit the 15 and Mahomes charity? Mahomes has done so much in his young career. Would we be shocked if he led the Chiefs to a 20-0 season? Well, I would. And Chiefs beat writers Herbie, Teope, and Sam McDowell would be too. We talk about that and other Chiefs topics on today's SportsBeat KC. It's Wednesday, June 2nd, and I'm Blair Kerkhoff. After a break, you'll hear from new Chiefs offensive tackle Orlando Brown, who met with the media last week. I'm more impressed every time I hear him. And we'll be hearing from more Chiefs later this week. But today, let's get started with Herbie and Sam. Herbie and Sam are here, and they are being recorded, as we just learned. So, of course, we're talking Chiefs, and big news today breaking from One Arrowhead Drive. The concert series is returning to Arrowhead with the announcement of Garth Brooks coming to the stadium sometime in August 7th, I believe the date is. So Chiefs got that going for them. Hey, look, that's something of a return to normal to have a concert at Arrowhead, right? It'll be the first non-Chiefs event there, I think, since 2019, maybe 2018. I'm not sure if they had a concert in 19 or certainly didn't have one in 2020. So Garth Brooks coming to Arrowhead. Do you guys know who the first performer to play at Arrowhead Stadium was? Got some
the Beatles.
The Beatles. That's good. Not too far off. Elton John played there in 1973. So the second year of the stadium. They've had some great shows out there. Have you ever seen a show at Arrowhead Stadium?
No.
God, man.
What have you seen?
Games. Those are shows.
They are shows. Well, here's my little Arrowhead Stadium concert story. Is when my wife and I moved out here in like 1989, the Who was playing at Arrowhead, and I like the Who, but
Hold on. Does Sam know who the Who is? Do you know who the Who is?
Sam doesn't. Sam will have to Google it. But
I know who the Who is.
Who the hell is that, right? So we didn't. We weren't going to pay for tickets, but what we did was we bought a 6-pack of beer, drove to the parking lot, and listened to it from the parking lot. And the sound was great. It was
Right.
little Roger Daltrey and Peter Townsend. It was good stuff. So yeah, that's the big Chiefs news of the day. The big Chiefs news of the week happened in Hawaii over the weekend, where Patrick Mahomes told, I was going to say a reporter, but it wasn't a reporter. It was Travis Kelce's girlfriend who was holding a mic. I don't know what her role is. Is she a reporter? Does she work for
I think she was part of the promotional thing for the Coors Light, whatever we're calling that, Coors Light Lounge or something.
Yeah, I don't want to dismiss the idea. She could be a reporter, but I know she's Travis Kelce's girlfriend, and Travis and Patrick Mahomes put it out there. The only record that he wants to break, he was asked about records, and the only record he wants to break is 20-0. No team has ever been 20-0, and I don't know if this got a lot. Maybe if Aaron Rodgers, it'd be big news if Aaron Rodgers had said it. If Brady had said it, maybe bigger news. I didn't think this got a lot of play around the country, but it certainly resonated here in Kansas City. 20-0 is a tall task. Although, look, they went 14-2 in the regular season last year. Okay for Patrick Mahomes to go out and say things like that, Sam?
I was really surprised because Patrick Mahomes is so measured in his responses, and he wasn't even Kayla did not even ask him about that. He just brought it up on his own, like he was waiting to get it out. So I was really surprised he would say something like that. You know, I'm old enough to remember when Derek Thomas was asked about potentially going 16-0 in the regular season. And I believe that was Gunther Cunningham's first year. It might have been his second, but I think it was his first year. And they went 7-9 that year, didn't make the playoffs. Now this team is better than that one. What Blair, do you know what year that would have been?
99 maybe?
Yeah,
maybe 99.
I think it was about 99 as well. this team has Patrick Mahomes. That one didn't. But still, there's a reason nobody's ever, Mahomes actually slipped up and said, I think the record's 19-0. Well, the Patriots famously were unable to go 19-0 because they lost to the Giants. So no team was even able to go 19-0. There's a reason for it. We've seen fantastic football teams in the NFL. 20-0 is just, I guess I don't want to say impossible. It's possible, but it seems just unachievable to me.
Can't happen. It just it can't. Herbie, you've seen enough football in your life. 20-0, man. I love the confidence, and that's great to put it out there. It gives us something to talk about, write about. But man, 20-0. That's
and I'll take the opposite side of Sam's surprise. I was not surprised because, quite frankly, we're in the off season, and this is trope season. Team X wants to go undefeated. Player X wants to win the Super Bowl as his goal. Player X wants to win 6 Super Bowls. I mean, this is the time of year where people will say, will establish some goals. Some realistic, some unrealistic. So, when a pro player like Patrick Mahomes, the face of the NFL, says, hey, I want to go 20-0, it's not surprising to me. It would be surprising if he says, oh, we're going to lose 9 games this year. Okay. But that's the kind of guy that you expect to set the bar high.
Man, I don't think, what else have we heard from Patrick Mahomes that lends you to believe he would say something like that? I just don't know of anything else he's said unprompted. That has been sort of in that realm. I can't think of anything that qualifies.
Sometimes, but again, to me, it's like this is the time of year where you're going to hear that kind of stuff. Players want to do, set lofty goals, etc. You're right that maybe he hasn't said anything like that before in the past. But again, I'm going back to, like you said, Blair. I've seen a lot of this. This is the time of year where you are going to see a lot of that stuff and all these lofty comparisons. I think it was 3 years ago, even when I was thankfully Melly's not here, but even when I was in New Orleans, Patrick Mahomes reminds everyone of Brett Favre. I mean, that's the storyline. And so you need to have these kinds of things during the offseason.
Mahomes hasn't said anything like this bold, but look, he'll gesture his disrespect, right? The touchdown against the Chicago Bears where he counts on his fingers to 10, right, where he's picked, and he'll do so after a touchdown. He might point or whatever, right? But to say something like this so that it can be aggregated and disseminated.
It's not just the fact that it's like the spoken word on that. Those are instances in which he feels he's been wronged or slighted in some sense. Nobody has slighted Patrick Mahomes by saying that they probably can't go 20-0. So the nature of the comment is what surprised me. The fact that it was unprompted and just out of the blue. That's why it surprised me, and who it came from. If Kayla had asked Travis Kelce about it and Kelce had said that probably wouldn't have surprised me that much. But just coming from that guy, it did.
So when the Chiefs lose, or the last team to lose every year, the Miami Dolphins, of course, pop some champagne because the Dolphins of 1972 were the only team in the Super Bowl era to go undefeated. And that was at 17-0 with a 14-game regular season. I do like that Mahomes knew it would be 20-0. He added the extra regular season game and understood it would be 3 playoff games to get him to 20-0. And I do like the number. Nice round number. Would look good on a T-shirt or apparel. The 20-0. I can see the ball caps or the ski caps with the 20-0. I think that would look pretty good.
Yeah, because 19-0 would have been a disaster.
Wouldn't even have counted.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's also in the news, in the realm of speculation, Julio Jones still unsigned. Untrated. What's that? Untraded. Thank you for clarifying. Wants to be, doesn't want to play for Atlanta anymore. Herbie, what are the prospects of him being a Kansas City Chief?
If I were a betting man, I would say less.
Well, let's stop. Wait a second. You are a betting man. I mean,
well, that's true too, but
maybe not sports wagering, but
in the fantasy world, it would be phenomenal. You know, if you had Julio Jones along with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and their host of weapons, it would just be fantastic. It would be like playing on Madden. But the realistic side of it is whoever trades for Julio Jones has to absorb his massive contract. And right now, the Chiefs do not have the cap space to even entertain that thought. Can they get creative? Absolutely. And if a team where there's a will, there's a way. You know, they can figure out a way to make this happen. But I just don't see them. You know, Julio Jones is an older wide receiver. Why would you absorb that contract, that massive contract that he signed just 2 years ago, and hurt your future cap space? I just don't see that happen. For a team to go after Julio Jones, it's going to be a team with a lot of cap space. And right now, the Chiefs just don't fit that bill.
No, I completely agree. I mean, there's nothing really I can add to that. I think you'd have to be either the massive amount of cap space, or you'd have to be a team that felt like you were that player away from becoming a Super Bowl contender. And the Chiefs are a Super Bowl contender without him. It's not a big enough need. I could potentially see it if we're talking about an edge rusher of that caliber. But I don't see the need for a wide receiver to just totally wreck your cap situation and make it even that much more difficult going into next year. And also, you know, the last couple of years, the Chiefs have been able to make some moves in season because they've allowed themselves that wiggle room. That wiggle room would be gone too. You get an injury during the season, you can't sign anybody. I mean, you can't make any moves. I know the Le'Veon Bell thing didn't work out, but they did add him mid-season, thinking that could be a guy who could help them. We know what they did 2 years ago with Suggs and Pennell. I mean, all that stuff would be gone if you had a guy like Julio Jones right now.
He is good. I mean, that dude is really
great player. I mean, there's obviously a wide receiver at that age. I think there is some question about, you know, when do we see the decline? Because we saw a little bit of it last year. And if you get the player that he was last year, you're still getting a really good player. But if that's the start of the descent, I think some teams are probably rightfully worried about that.
We all get odds from various places? Who's the supposedly the leader for Julio Jones? Is it
Seahawks?
Seahawks, yeah. I think that's the last one I saw. It would be a nice weapon for Russell Wilson, that's for sure. So a week ago, we heard from Andy Reid, and we're going to hear from him again this week. But a week ago, we heard from Andy Reid. It's always interesting, especially, you know, if we hadn't talked in a while. And so I'm listening to Andy Reid, and he didn't say anything to me that I didn't expect him to say until one of the last questions. And I thought this was interesting. We don't have a clip of it, so I will refer you to the podcast last week where we played the entire Andy Reid audio. It was about Jarran Reed, and he, you know, maybe the question was in context with the offensive line, but he just said, "Look, we talk a lot about the offensive line. We need to talk about what we did in the defensive line." And he referenced Reed, and he's somebody who, I mean, we wrote about it and talked about it, but you know, with the offseason they've had with the offensive line, that's just a bigger priority for us, right? But my ears perked up when I heard Andy Reid talking about Reed that way. So Herbie, what is this? What could this mean for the defense?
It's all about flexibility, and you know, I think this might be a shot at some of the national people, because a lot of national people leading up to OTAs were writing about how the Chiefs didn't address the need for a pass rusher. But you know, us on this show and we've even written about it, was the flexibility that Jarran Reed gives them. You know, now you've got a creative defensive coordinator in Steve Spagnuolo. When you have Reed there, you've got the flexibility now to kick out Chris Jones to play defensive end. You know, unfortunately, I can't say what I saw out there at OTAs, but it wouldn't surprise me if that was what the Chiefs were going to plan on doing leading up to the season. You can put in Derek Nottie as well as Jarran Reed in the middle. You can have Frank Clark out there on the right defensive end, and you can move Chris Jones out to left defensive end in the 4-3 base. When you go to a 3-4 sub package, when they run nickel, Now you can keep Reed, Chris Jones, and Frank Clark, right there in the middle. Reed is a guy who had 19 and a half sacks over the past couple of seasons, so he can certainly apply pressure up the middle. But, Andy Reid is absolutely correct. The flexibility was huge, and that's the reason why I think when they signed him, they didn't go out there and draft a defensive end high like we all thought they might do. They waited a few rounds later to get Joshua Kendo as a developmental guy because you still have Chris Jones on the contract for 4 more years, and you've got Reed. It's the flexibility, as Andy Reid talks about, it's essential to Spagnuolo's creativity.
And we've mentioned it on the show before. It's worth repeating that when Chris Jones played outside in the 3-4, he had a 15 and a half sack season, including an NFL record sack in 11 straight games. I think it was the final 11 games of the 2018 season. So Chris Jones is a menace wherever he plays, but getting him on the outside, I think he can do some serious damage there. So.
I think it's fascinating when you look at that too, because when you think about stout interior defensive linemen, look at how the Rams sometimes move around Aaron Donald. And now you have that flexibility here in Kansas City because you have a guy who can play the middle. A couple of years ago when they brought in Ndamukong Suh in Los Angeles, that allowed them to move Aaron Donald to the outside. So again, it goes back to that creativity, and I think it's going to be fascinating to watch, especially in training camp when the practices are open to the public. We'll get a good vision of what their plan is for Chris Jones.
And go ahead, Sam.
Well, I was just going to say, I think it works as long as Reed is that guy, because I've always been of the belief that I'd rather have if I'm going to get the same production from the outside or inside, I think that the inside pass rusher causes more disruption to a play because you can't roll out. We've always heard them talk about the fact that Tom Brady, the way to disrupt Tom Brady is pressure him right up the middle at his legs. If Reed can be that guy, because Chris Jones has been that guy here for 3 or 4 years now, if Reed can be that guy, then that's fantastic. If they can kick Chris Jones out, which is something that Herbie and I have been talking about ever since they signed Reed. I mean, I guess Andy Reid probably hasn't been listening to our SportsBeat podcast.
He's the only one.
The only one in Kansas City not listening to our sport. He's the one. But Reed's got to be that guy then. And if he's not, and they have to kick Chris Jones back inside, then they've got some problems on the outside.
Yeah, then we're back to square one. Who the heck is the opposite pass rusher to Frank Clark?
Okay, there are a few more media opportunities left before the Chiefs and the NFL shut it down for their few week break in the summer. I'm really looking forward to hearing what Steve Spagnuolo has to say. I believe we're scheduled to hear from Steve this week, along with Eric Bieniemy, Andy Reid, maybe a player, maybe Patrick Mahomes, a couple of other assistant coaches as well. I mean, I hope this doesn't sound kind of silly, but let's preview a press conference. What are we expecting to hear from the Chiefs? What's on your mind going in? Not to tip your hand to other reporters, but what's on your mind, Herbie, about going into tomorrow's media availability?
I think with Steve Spagnuolo is the topic we just discussed. What's his vision? Is Jarran Reed the guy they thought he was when they signed him? Because by tomorrow they're going to have 6 practices. Again, we always have to preface this with they're not in pads, but the OTAs is going to set that foundation for whether they grasp the scheme and their individual responsibilities. So I would love to know how Reed is progressing and how what Spagnuolo's actual vision for Chris Jones, because we can ask him that question and get it on records. How much do you plan on moving Chris Jones on the outside? And whatever Spag says is going to be, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
Spags is a great talker anyway.
Yeah.
How about you, Sam?
Yeah, I think that is probably number one. But also, I never thought I would be so interested in an offensive line. We know the offensive line say they don't get talked about much. That's not true here this offseason, and we're probably going to get to talk to Andy Heck, their longtime offensive line coach under Andy Reid. And same sort of thing as what Herbie just said about, the fact that we'll ask Spags about where certain guys might line up, where he could envision that. Same thing with Andy Heck. Can Creed Humphrey be a day one starter for him? Herbie and I have talked. We think he could be the day one starter. Is Lucas Niang exclusively a right tackle? Do you envision moving him around? We know Andy Heck likes to move guys around, but where do you see him slotting in immediately? Like I said, I never thought I'd be so interested in the offensive line, but there's some questions on this offensive line this year that I think Andy Heck could enlighten us on Thursday.
Yeah, especially from the center to the right side, right? Left side looks pretty solid with Orlando Brown and Joe Thuney. And we're going to hear from Orlando Brown after we take a break, and that means we're going to bid farewell to Herbie Teope and Sam McDowell. Thanks, guys. We will do it again soon.
All right, thanks, Blair.
Thanks, Blair.
Hey, Orlando. We haven't talked to you since the trade. Just wondering how the first couple weeks of a Kansas City Chief gone and how you've acclimated to some of the guys in the room in the offensive line as a whole.
It's been going great, man. It's been going great. It's different, obviously, with it being a new team for me, but a bunch of great men in this locker room, a lot of good leadership, a lot of men that played ball for a long time and been around the game. And I'm just being a sponge, soaking in as much as I can from, some of these older guys in this locker room and all the knowledge that they have and experience that they have and, things that they've been through, here in Kansas City or in the pros period. So it's been great, man. The team's taking me in. The coaches are taking me in. I'm just working every day.
Go next to Robert Rimpson. Go to Robert.
Hey, Orlando. Andy kind of talked about you earlier and how you and Andy Heck have been talking a lot. What do you think of Andy, and what have you learned from Coach Heck so far?
Coach Heck is great, man. He's an incredible coach. He understands the X's and O's. He's played the game. He's been around the game for a long time, so he knows. He's super easy to get along with and learn. I've been in Baltimore for the last 3 years, so there's certain things, I guess you could say I'm wired a certain way on certain things, and I'm unwiring and learning his new techniques and certain things that he's teaching. I think is going to be incredible for my game.
Let's go next to Adam Teicher. Go ahead, Adam.
Hey, Orlando. When you talked to us last time, you told us how important your dad's influence has been on your career, and just wanted to ask you, what would he think, first of all, of you not only getting drafted, but being drafted by one of his former teams when you did a couple of years ago, and now getting to play left tackle for a Super Bowl contending team?
Yeah, I think my dad would just be excited that I'm in the NFL, period. I think it would have been a similar situation, in Baltimore, although he would have been happy that it was a team that he played on. I could say the same thing for the Cleveland Browns, honestly. He loved that organization as well. But I think he would just be happy that, I'm in the league and I'm able to play at the highest level. And, I'm getting better each and every year. I know that, he'd be more excited about that as far as who I play for, I guess you could say.
Let's go next to Darren Smith. Go ahead, Darren.
Hey, Orlando. First of all, I like the little LL Cool J look. You got to tell us about that. But more importantly, when you're in the room, have like Lucas Niang or some of the younger players come to you, Creed Humphrey, just come to you and just ask how you've adjusted from going to college to the NFL, and just like trying to get some advice from you, knowing even though this is your first year in Kansas City, but you've been a Pro Bowl at both sides of the ball. Has Lucas Niang or anyone that the Chiefs have drafted or brought in come to you for advice?
Yeah, man, honestly, all of those young guys. And I'm just trying to do my part and be the best leader that I can be, be someone that they can lean on as far as for questions about the scheme, or really more so lifestyle and personal issues that you may deal with as a young player in this league. It's not easy, to make it into this league. It's definitely not easy to stay in it. And, my big thing, and the big thing that I emphasize to them, is the understanding that, this is what we do for a living, but, at the same time, you got to have fun with it. And, you got to enjoy it and understand that, once these pads come on, once the lights come on, man, we're going to be the most physical group in the NFL. And they're taking it in. They're taking in what Coach Heck is teaching, and, Coach Reed, and really just the system. Everyone's all ears. I think we got an incredible offensive line room, including the veterans that we have in there, and some of the older guys, and Mike and Kyle and Joe. It's an incredible room.
We got four more. We'll go right down the line, starting with Matt Derrick. Good, Matt.
Hey, Orlando. I know you've worn 78 for a while, which is retired in KC. I'm just curious, what went into the thought process and the decision making to go with 57? And do you understand the rareness to see a left tackle wearing that number?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I feel like 57 gave me the opportunity to represent two men that had an incredible impact on my life, with that being Jamal Brown wearing 55 and my dad wearing 77 and 78. I just felt like it was an opportunity to, I would have got 75, but Mike had 75. So I was like, 57 is available. And, I just thought it was a great number. I definitely thought it was unique, but it definitely gives me the opportunity to represent those men.
Let's go next to Herbie Teope. Go ahead, Herbie.
Hey, Orlando, so many moving pieces with this offensive line. Obviously, you're new. Joe Tooney is new. Looks like he'll be working in the new center. How important is it to you, as a guy who's been in the league a while, these OTAs, to develop some sort of cohesion and understanding what the guys next to you are doing?
Very important, man. To me, especially up front, and maybe for quarterbacks as well, it's important to get that live timing against a real body, get that live timing against a real defensive end, the rush it, the time or the snap count, the system, all of those different things, man. I think that I'm at a point in my career where it's definitely these type of off seasons and being able to practice against live personnel, it helps me a lot. You know what I mean? Because I'm able to focus on things that, I may not have been able to focus on last year and be able to craft, and I take this time to really just try to develop my game into a different way. That way I can hit the ground running here in June once we get out and translate that all the way into camp, into the season. But, man, it's really important.
Go next to Sarin Petro. Go ahead, Sarin.
Orlando, talked a little bit to Coach Reed just about some of the nuances that maybe you've got to change, right? I know when he was very complimentary of the Baltimore coaching staff and that you were well coached there, but what are the nuances that are different in maybe a more run heavy versus a pass, or just the nuances of the different way that they want you to block? What are some of the things you're having to work on?
Man, you think you said it right there, with the, the adjustment to more true drop back passes. Just the understanding that, now I got to, play an actual chess game out there on the edge with a guy, because, we're going to have to do certain things a certain way. And, I'm going to do my best to manipulate all of my blocks to the best of my abilities and keep Pat safe. But, it's definitely a learning curve. It's a different system for sure. But, football is football. At the end of the day, once I get it down, I know it's over with.
We'll go last to Nate Taylor. Go ahead, Nate.
Hey, Orlando, I have two quick questions for you. What's the best part about Creed Humphrey as a just teammate going all the way back to college? And then secondly, what's it been like to get to know Chris Jones and to see him in this sort of setting so far?
Yeah, it's been great getting to know Chris, man. Chris is an elite talent, all-pro level player. He's been really good for a long time. He gets paid like it, man. I got a ton of respect for him and his game. I enjoy working and going against him, man. That's something you don't get, every day, unless obviously you play here or play, somewhere else with an elite rusher. And as far as Creed, man, Creed's incredible, man. Creed is someone that when I was my last year at OU, he was coming in as a freshman and he was a sponge. He soaked everything up, learned what he could, learned the system fast. He's very competitive. And he loves football, and, he likes being physical. And I think, those two things or three things are definitely going to help him excel to being an elite level center in this league, man. I definitely think that, he has all pro bowl potential. And, this system, this scheme is going to give him the opportunity to do it, and he's got the right mindset.
Orlando, we appreciate you taking the time. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
That'll do it for today. Thanks to our SportsBeat KC production staff of Derek Donovan, Beth Welsh, Monty Davis, Jeff Rosen, Chris Fickett, and Savannah Smith. Tip of the cap to Herbie Teope and Sam McDowell for stopping by and talking Chiefs. Links to their stories can be found in the show notes and on kansascity.com. Hey, we got another deal for you. You can subscribe to Sports Pass for 99 cents a month. That's right, 99 pennies a month. Sports Pass is the online version of the Star Sports section. You get all the stories that appear in the print editions of the Star, plus many more stories that appear only on the website, and certainly they appear first on kansascity.com. So after 3 months, it auto-renews at $5.99 a month unless you cancel. It's a great time to subscribe. You read about what's going on with the Chiefs, the Royals, the colleges, our soccer teams, and more. How do you get it? You go to kansascity.com/sportspass2020. That is kansascity.com/sportspass2020. You want more than just sports coverage? Check out the entire Kansas City Star product. Sports news, features, commentary, and analysis, the whole thing. You get all the stories written by my talented colleagues, plus additional national news, sports, and business coverage with the e-edition. The details for all of these deals can be found at account.kansascity.com. kansascity.com/subscribe. And if you're having trouble hunting down any of the offers, send me an email, bkerkhoff@kcstar.com. I'll get you to the right place. So whether it's the Sports Pass or the full subscription, you're getting and supporting the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City and helping us produce programs like SportsBeat KC. Thanks for listening. We'll be back on Thursday with another episode.